It was a cold, moonless night when Sarah, a young pizza delivery driver, received an order that would change her life forever. The call came in at exactly midnight, an eerie and ominous hour. The order was for a large, extra cheese pizza with a cryptic note, "Deliver to 13 Oakwood Lane." Sarah didn't think much of it at first. She figured it was just another late-night snack for someone with unusual cravings. The address, 13 Oakwood Lane, was on the outskirts of town, nestled in a forested area that had always given her the creeps. The narrow, winding road leading to the address was surrounded by dense trees that seemed to reach out like skeletal hands in the darkness. As Sarah drove deeper into the forest, the GPS signal grew weaker, and the headlights of her car became her only source of illumination. The only sounds were the rumble of her engine and the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. Unease settled in her gut, but she pushed it aside, reminding herself that she had delivered to remote locations before. Finally, she arrived at 13 Oakwood Lane. It was a decrepit, overgrown driveway leading to a dilapidated mansion. The place looked like it hadn't seen human activity in years. Its dark, looming silhouette seemed to merge with the surrounding trees, making it difficult to distinguish where the forest ended and the house began. Sarah took a deep breath and approached the front door, which was cracked open just enough for her to slip the pizza inside. She hesitated for a moment, sensing that something was terribly wrong, but the promise of a tip and the desire to escape this eerie place as quickly as possible made her dismiss her instincts. She pushed the door open and was greeted by a chilling sight. The entrance hall was filled with dusty, old paintings of people with twisted, contorted faces. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like macabre curtains, and the air was thick with an unnatural stillness. The only source of light came from a dimly lit corridor at the far end of the hall. Sarah cautiously ventured further into the mansion, following the faint sound of whispered voices. The corridor seemed endless, with doors lining both sides, each one adorned with an odd symbol. The whispers grew louder, and Sarah realized they were coming from behind one of the doors. With trembling hands, she pushed the door open to reveal a room filled with shadowy figures huddled around a large, circular table. In the center of the table was the extra cheese pizza she had delivered, untouched. The figures turned their heads in unison to face her, their eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. Before Sarah could react, they began to chant in a language she couldn't understand. The room grew colder, and a bone-chilling fear gripped her. The pizza she had brought was no ordinary pizza. It was a dark ritual offering. She had unwittingly stumbled upon a coven of witches, and her presence had disrupted their ceremony. Desperation consumed Sarah as she realized she was trapped. She bolted for the door, but it slammed shut before she could escape. The chanting grew louder, and the figures closed in on her, their faces contorting into nightmarish expressions. Panic welled up inside her as she realized the true horror of her situation. Sarah's screams echoed through the mansion, but there was no one to hear them. She had become a part of a ritual she could never have imagined in her worst nightmares, her life forever entwined with the sinister forces that lurked in the darkness of 13 Oakwood Lane. It was a stormy, rain-soaked night in the small coastal town of Havenwood, and Marco, a seasoned pizza delivery driver, had seen his fair share of unusual encounters. Little did he know, tonight's delivery would take him to the eerie depths of the unknown. Marco's phone buzzed with an incoming order, and he groaned as he saw the delivery address. 666 Abyss Street. He knew that address all too well. It was the abandoned, rumored-to-be haunted building at the edge of town, a place nobody in their right mind would go after dark. Despite his reservations, Marco had a reputation for being fearless. He hopped in his car and sped through the relentless rain, guided only by the occasional flash of lightning. Thunder rumbled ominously overhead as he pulled up to the decaying, ominous structure. The pizzeria's entrance was a heavy wooden door, creaking eerily as Marco pushed it open. Inside, the place was dimly lit by flickering candles. The walls were covered in faded, peeling wallpaper, and the air was thick with the scent of ancient wood and decay. A lone figure sat at the far end of the room, their back turned toward Marco. Clad in a tattered black robe, they hunched over a table covered with strange symbols and arcane artifacts. The pizza box rested at the center of the table. Clearing his throat nervously, Marco called out, "Hey, I've got your pizza." The figure slowly turned around, revealing a face hidden beneath a hood. Marco's heart skipped a beat as he saw the person's unsettling, featureless mask. It was as if they had no face at all. In a whisper that sent shivers down Marco's spine, the masked figure spoke, "You're just in time, delivery boy." Marco's instinct screamed at him to flee, but he couldn't move. The room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, trapping him in its malevolent grasp. The figure beckoned him closer with a gloved hand. As Marco approached, the figure lifted the lid of the pizza box. Inside, instead of a delicious pie, was a writhing, grotesque mass of tentacles and eyes, an eldritch horror from another dimension. It was alive, and it hungered. The figure raised a dagger and, with a swift ceremonial motion, sliced open their own palm, letting their blood drip onto the abomination within the box. The unholy creature wriggled with anticipation. Marco's terror reached its peak as he realized the truth. The pizzeria wasn't abandoned. It was a front for a cult that worshipped unspeakable entities, and he, unwittingly, had become a part of their dark ritual. Desperation took over as he broke free of the room's spell and sprinted toward the door, leaving the horrific scene behind. The storm outside raged on, echoing his frantic escape. From that night on, Marco vowed never to take another delivery to the cursed 666 Abyss Street, haunted by the Unholy Pizzeria and its sinister patrons. In the quiet town of Willowbrook, nestled in the heart of the countryside, there existed a beloved pizzeria known as Pizza Haven. While it was famous for its mouth-watering pies and friendly staff, there was one particular order that still sent chills down the spines of the employees, a large, mysterious order that came only once every few years. It was a foggy autumn evening when the order came in. Samantha, a pizza delivery driver with a penchant for the paranormal, was assigned to this peculiar delivery. The order was for a large supreme pizza with extra olives and anchovies, and it was to be delivered to the secluded Blackwood mansion, an imposing and eerie structure that loomed on the outskirts of town. As Samantha made her way through the thick fog, she couldn't help but think of the stories she had heard about the mansion. It was said to be haunted, with tales of strange apparitions and eerie sounds emanating from its darkened windows. The townsfolk avoided the place like the plague, and the mansion had earned its reputation as a place of dread and foreboding. Upon reaching the mansion, Samantha was struck by its eerie beauty. The building, with its turrets and archaic architecture, looked like something out of a Gothic novel. The fog had thickened, and the mansion seemed to emerge from the mist like a phantom. She gathered the pizza and rang the doorbell, which emitted an ominous chime that echoed through the cavernous halls within. Samantha waited, feeling a sense of unease settle in her stomach. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a tall, thin man with pale skin and jet-black hair. He wore an impeccably tailored suit that seemed out of place in the old mansion. "Ah, you're here," he said in a soft, almost melodic voice. "Please come in." Samantha stepped into the mansion's foyer, her footsteps echoing in the dimly lit space. Portraits of long-dead ancestors lined the walls, their stern gazes following her every move. The man led her into a grand dining room adorned with antique furniture and flickering candles. Seated at the head of the table was a group of people, all dressed in formal attire, their faces obscured by ornate masks. Samantha's heart raced as she noticed the peculiar design on each mask, depicting a single, all-seeing eye. The man gestured for Samantha to place the pizza at the center of the table. She did so, her eyes never leaving the bizarre scene before her. The group began to chant in a language she couldn't comprehend, their voices harmonizing in an eerie, otherworldly melody. Suddenly the room grew cold, and a gust of wind extinguished the candles, plunging the room into darkness. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest as she fumbled for her phone, using its feeble light to pierce the obscurity. To her horror, the group had vanished, leaving behind only their masks. The pizza, once steaming and aromatic, had turned cold and lifeless. Samantha knew she had to escape, but the mansion seemed to have a mind of its own, its layout shifting and distorting as if to confuse and trap her. With her phone as her only guide, Samantha navigated the labyrinthine corridors, encountering eerie sights and chilling sounds. Ghostly whispers and the flickering shadows of unknown entities haunted her every step. Finally, she stumbled upon the mansion's front door, which stood ajar. Without looking back, she burst out into the foggy night. She knew she had narrowly escaped a fate she couldn't comprehend, a sinister ritual involving a mysterious order of pizza. Samantha never returned to Blackwood Mansion, and Pizza Haven removed the address from their delivery zone. But the memory of that night and the haunting sense of being watched by countless unseen eyes stayed with her for the rest of her life, a reminder that some mysteries are best left unsolved, even if they come with a side of pizza.